Welcome to Fresh Catholic, a podcast for those who are converting, reverting, or simply want a fresh perspective of the Catholic faith to help them to open their hearts and minds to become closer to the love and goodness of Christ. My daily prayer is that I will be a bright light to others, to be filled with the love and light of Christ, so that when people look at me, they see Him radiating out from me for His glory. Hello and welcome. I'm Lori Balderas, and I'm so happy you're here. Today we have part 3 of our summertime series, The Path to Catholicism, in which my special guest is Michael Millin. He is an author, former professional free surfer, and podcast host. He authored the memoir, A Life of Opposing Forces, which explores his journey from generational trauma and addiction to sobriety and healing. He also hosts the podcast Opposing Forces with Michael S. Millin, where he delves into topics like generational trauma, addiction, and personal growth. Please enjoy my interview with Michael Millin. Well, hello, Michael. Thank you for coming today.
Thank you for having me.
Here we are in the studio of Fresh Catholic, and you are where in the world today?
I'm in Santa Monica.
Santa Monica. Wow, fancy. Maybe he's going to go surfing after this. That's what I would do if I was in Santa Monica and I wasn't disabled, but that's a whole other story. Anyway, thanks for coming today. You were highly recommended by Deacon Don Huntley, and I think he's been your OCIA teacher. He was my OCIA teacher, or RCIA back then, but we have that in common, and I know he's very important to me, and I have a feeling he's very important to you as well in your journey.
Yeah, I love Deacon Don. He's a very intelligent man, and he's been a great help to me in this process. So,
isn't he just such a magnetic person for the RCIA program? He and his whole team, they just really draw people into the faith. I think it's a beautiful gift they have. Don't you agree?
Yeah, and his knowledge is just incredible. Yeah, amazing guy.
I agree. Well, so today I have you here because we're doing a series called Path to Catholicism, and you are a recent convert. And so I can't wait to hear your story. And I know you've also written a book, which we talked about in the intro, and we'll get into more of that later in the episode or throughout the episode. But I just want everybody to be aware that Michael has a book. I think it's going to be very inspirational to people. I know you've had some issues with different things in your family and substance abuse and things like that in your family. So I do think that you are going to be an inspiration. And I think a lot of people have had a similar story, but of course not your story. But I think that's how we can all help each other, is when somebody has an experience, and you are open and honest about it. People don't feel as alone in what they're going through, and they can get inspiration. So we'll talk more about that in the episode, and we will put a link to your book and everything to make sure that people are able to purchase that book, because I do think it's really helpful. But before we get too deep into everything, I'm just wondering what your religious background is, if any, because I do know you're a convert. So when you were being raised, what was your religious experience?
So my mom, she would have called herself a Jehovah's Witness, even though she wasn't consistent in like going to church and all that. But I went to church with her sporadically as a kid, and did some like Bible studies and stuff like that. My dad would have called himself a Catholic. He wears a cross. He has since I was young. He still does to this day. But I never saw him go to church once. So, that's kind of the base.
So
my foundation.
So you didn't go to church with your parents, that they had gone to church before you were born or whatever, when you were younger, and then you didn't really have like a strong sense of religion in your family.
No, No, I mean I went like a little bit here and there, but it wasn't like a consistent thing.
How'd you feel about that?
Well, um, I really, I was so young, I didn't know what to think. Like, I had a pretty crazy childhood. There was a lot of, like alcoholism and generational trauma, and so we were constantly on the run. And my parents were always breaking up and getting back together, and it was, it wasn't pretty. It was, and I didn't know any different at the time, so I was just kind of rolling with the punches. But we would be sleeping on couches, on family members' couches all across the country. We'd end up in sometimes. One time we were in Florida, another time Montana, Hawaii, all over California. So it was just like a very unsettling childhood, and I didn't know any different at the time. So I was just in survival.
Yeah, I was going to say if you didn't have anything to compare it to, you would probably think that's just normal, like that's how people are living. And it doesn't sound very stable, but you kind of, again, didn't know that. That was just your experience. But did you get a sense that something wasn't quite right or what?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, my dream when I was a little kid was to live in one home in one town, because I would see kids like that, and I just thought that looked amazing. Instead of always just, oh, the what hit the fan in this town, so we're getting on the Greyhound bus and we're taking it to Montana, or just it was like that. It was it was just very unsettling.
Yeah, it's a very
And
nomadic lifestyle.
yeah, and looking back on it now, it's like, wow, that if you can survive, it builds character. That's for sure. It's a it's kind of like a unique upbringing. Even though I feel like there are a lot of kids and who go through this, and that's a big reason why I wrote this book, is because I want to reach the kids who are going through this, and people who are older as well. Like, it can hit you at any age, right?
Right,
Addiction, trauma, like all that. So yeah.
right. Do you have siblings?
I do. Yep.
So
I
were they
have
a part
a
of all
younger
that as
brother.
well? You all kind of were traveling around together?
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes we would get split up, and I would go with my dad, and he would go with my mom, or vice versa. But yeah, in general, that's how it was.
Well, it definitely, I would say that is character building, but it's, it's very sad. And I'm sure at the time that's what your parents were doing. Are they still with us today? Are things better with them today?
Yeah, I'm happy to report. I mean, I always just say that I just love my parents. I just love them for who they are, and they're still here. They're doing okay now. And they're okay with me talking about this stuff. But they were homeless for like 10 years, um, but they got approved for government subsidized housing about 4 or 5 years ago in San Diego. So that's just been a huge, I mean, blessing for them to get into that place and be able just to, have a nice little home. And they have a dog they love, a little wiener dog named Henry, and they just chill at home a lot. So I'm very thankful for that, because it was really, really hard watching them go through that for years. It like ripped my heart out.
Well, honestly, parents, sometimes we forget our parents are human. Sometimes we don't even think that they had a past or they had something, before we were born, that they were actual people struggling their way through the world. Some of that, morphs into later where they continue on while we're being raised or whatever. And it's good that it sounds like you're very loving and forgiving about some of the decisions they made, because how beautiful that they also are kind of, coming through the other end, and there's positive things in their life as well. Like that maybe you were estranged for a while or something, I don't know, but it sounds to me like now there's that love and forgiveness, and that they're trying to do better, because a lot of people, not just parents, but a lot of people go through substance abuse, and they either don't come out the other end, they either pass away, or they just stay in that mindset. So it sounds like things are kind of moving in a positive direction. That's very inspiring.
Yeah, and one of the things that I talk about in the book is generational trauma, and because I wanted to show people what my parents went through with their parents, because their parents were alcoholics and addicts and very abusive and abandoned them. I mean, my dad grew up in like a juvenile hall because his parents disappeared when he was 9 years old, and you know, just and it's so crazy how these things keep getting repeated, and we just think, oh, it's just, oh, alcoholism runs in the family. That's, that's just. But I mean, I don't know about that. I'm starting to think that. Well, it's not even I think. It's like I know that there are spirits that work on us and to harm us, and I mean they want to see us suffer, and I've experienced things that, I mean, you can't convince me otherwise. I know there's like a battle of light and dark going on in the world, and because I've seen things, supernatural, dark things, like, and it's not something I talk about a lot, but it's you can't talk me out of that now. So that's kind of where I'm at with that.
I agree. And on a kind of lighter note, but it's true. We were joking, not joking. Michael was saying he and his girlfriend were trying to get things set up for this interview, and things were going a little wonky. And I said to you, well, there's Satan. And we kind of laughed, but we're serious. Satan doesn't want us to be talking about anything that draws people to the Lord. Satan does not want, people to be in strong, happy families. He does not want marriages to be strong and happy. He does not want relationships to be strong and happy. He does not want Michael to come on my podcast and talk about this. But guess what, Satan? We're doing it anyway. So anyway, not today, Satan, not today. Anyway, so it's true. I think, we're laughing about it, but it's not funny. There are many things that Satan and evil spirits try to do to detour us, to change our minds, to get us to not focus on the light of Christ. And, we have to be strong, and some people can do it and some people can't. We have to pray for people when they're struggling. But yeah, man, that's something. So let's see. We're going to take a quick break before we kind of get more into your, what brought you to the Catholic faith. So we're just going to, put a pin in that for just 1 second, and we'll be right back. Are you looking for some hope and inspiration? Are you or someone you know struggling with addiction, alcoholism, family troubles from the past or present? Well, I have the book for you by someone who's been there. A Life of Opposing Forces is by Michael S. Millin and co-authored by Danielle McKenna Forres. This book is a raw, unflinching memoir that charts the turbulent journey of Michael S. Millin from the crushing weight of generational trauma and addiction to the life of changing clarity found in sobriety, adventure, and Christ. This is a high-stakes narrative with a human heart. Michael courageously exposes the dark undercurrents of his past, childhood instability, family strife, and a relentless struggle with alcoholism. He then pulls readers into the liberating highs discovered through recovery and radical self-honesty. Whether you know the crashing waves of trauma or addiction personally, or simply seek an inspiring tale of resilience, this story speaks to anyone yearning to break free from their past and redefine their identity. I highly recommend this book. Order today. Michael is generously offering a 10% discount to Fresh Catholic listeners from July 21st to August 5th. Use promo code FRSHCATH at checkout on furtheractive.com. And we're back. Okay, so what's the next phase of this story? I'm interested to know how you went from traveling around with your parents. This was your life. What's the next part of this story?
So around the age of 17, 18, I broke away from that family unit and just started doing my own thing, finding ways to survive. I mean, I've had every lousy job under the sun just to keep a roof over my head and keep myself fed, because at that point, um, my dad had relapsed after a long period of sobriety, and him and my mom they were they were homeless. So I really and I didn't know what to do. I didn't know. I wanted to try to help them and take care of them, but I couldn't even. I had nowhere to live. So I just started separating myself more and more, and then I started drinking. Which is just insanity, right? To think that after all I saw as a kid, I mean, you would think that I would have stayed completely away from all that, but it was just the opposite. I started drinking to cope with all the pain and the stress that I was dealing with. And for me to drink, I was like a blackout drinker. I'd go on benders, and it was almost like I would enter into another universe, and to run away from all my issues and problems when I was drinking. So I wanted to stay there in that universe for as long as I could. So I would go on benders that would last anywhere from a few days to like 7 months. I remember, and I'd wake up in different towns, not quite sure how I got there. So things progressed for me they got pretty bad pretty quick, and I ended up getting sober when I was 24. I was just at a bottom, and I really believe it was God that kind of put some things in my path that led me to entering into a 12-step program. And I got sober when I was 24, and I've been sober for 16 years now.
Wow.
So,
Congratulations. That's
yeah,
amazing.
yeah, thank you. Yeah, and things got a lot better for me in sobriety, obviously. But and I ended up moving to Indonesia for 10 years to chase like dreams with surfing and all that. And so things got better, but I still really struggled. And then I started getting into meditation and all these new age practices. And and that was a whole nother rabbit hole. And because it would help me for a little while, the things I was doing, like say if I was struggling with something or whatever, but then it would always crash. Everything would collapse on me again. And I went through some really tough periods, even in sobriety. I mean, I was close to jumping off a cliff at one point, and that scared me in sobriety as well. So it's really, I mean, this is kind of like the cliff notes on everything that happened, but I came to Christ. Well, I guess we'll get into that, but there's been a massive shift in my life since coming to Christ these last 2 years.
Well, and it sounds like you were trying to, obviously when people do a lot of substance abuse or drinking, they're trying to numb, the problems they're having. They're self-medicating. They don't know what else to do. They don't know what else to turn to. Like you said, you kind of need to black out for a while so that it, just you're not having to think about things. And then the whole new age thing, that a lot of people gravitate to that for the same reason. They're looking for something. They're looking for something that's going to solve the problem or fill the void or whatever. And if anybody out there is dabbling in those things, they're not good. They're not real. They actually lead you down the wrong path. They're not the thing that's going to fill the void. The thing that's going to fill the void is Jesus Christ himself. And it takes some people never make it to that. They never realize that. They're being told things. They're kind of being, for lack of a better term, in my opinion, they're being conned into doing these things. And it's very serious to get involved in those things. And if you can also come out of that, I mean, you're a very strong guy, Michael. I don't even know you that well, but just knowing that you came through, the substance abuse, you came through going through, this spiritual way of having your life, with new age. I mean, God definitely has a goal for you and a plan for you. I mean, you're here for a reason. it sounds to me like there's many times where you could have not made it, and yet you're here talking about it. So that's why this is super inspirational, because I do think a lot of people fall into these same issues, but they don't have as much success. Maybe they're not as open to what, what their life could be. So what was that like, if you were on that path, the new age path, what kind of got you off that? Or, how long were you on that path? And then what got you, to seek out Christ?
Yeah. Well, what I was gonna say is like all of that stuff is not fake, right? It's real, but it's the forces behind it are dark. They have to be with the results that I was getting. Yeah, and there was one other thing I was going to touch on, but maybe it'll come back to me. But yeah, so basically, it was in 2023. I had come back to the States from Indonesia because the pandemic hit, and it just felt like the right thing to do because I had yeah, well, it just felt like the right thing to do. So I came back in 2020, and I got into super into this meditation and just creating the life I wanted, and it had nothing to do with Christ, right? It had to do with the universe and all that, and I I I had a relationship that started and lasted for like 2 years, and it really felt like it was it was like my it was the person I was supposed to spend my life with and all that. And long story short, it just after multiple failed relationships and multiple failed business attempts and everything that I ever worked on, like I would get so close to success, and then right before the success, everything would collapse every time. And I really just thought I was completely cursed. And it's something that just has been running in my family line for generations because my dad followed a similar pattern. My grandpa followed a similar pattern. You know, um, create a family, have kids, and then everything's business is going great and all this stuff. But then at a certain point, everything collapses. I had a partner and a daughter and in Bali, and that collapsed as well. So I mean, the patterns just kept repeating themselves, and I was back in the States at this point, and once again, the relationship collapsed, and I was really just at this point where I was like, okay, like I'm in my late 30s, nothing has worked, nothing is working, and I really feel like this was Christ speaking to me when this happened, because I had two older Christian men come into my life at the same time, and they didn't know each other. They were from different countries. They had no clue who the other guy was. And they openly spoke of Christ, and they talked about, you can just tell too that they had the light pouring out of them. You can just tell. You can see it in people when something's working. You can see it come out of their eyes and their whole being. And they talked about, and this was so crazy. This was like a synchronicity, right? They shared their story that they had met their wives, and both of them, neither of them even kissed their wives until their wedding day, and both of them had been with their wives for over 20 years, and they had families that were together and strong, and I had never seen that in a family up until that point. Most the families that I've seen, like my own included, have been divided and just a lot of pain and drama, and like it's like I heard a man of the church say recently that, like, Satan divided heaven. He loves seeing division. Look what he did with the angels in heaven, and he likes to do that with the family unit as well. And that seems really clear to me, that like a clear truth. So it was those men speaking to me that really, I was like, wow, there's something to this. And I started leaning into reading the Bible. I started going to I started at a Presbyterian church, just because that's where I was. One of them was in a Presbyterian church, and I ended up getting baptized there. So, and that was in mid 2023. So that's where it all started.
All right. So that's very interesting. And I agree with you 100%. Satan is the great divider. He, again, doesn't want us to have successful families, successful marriages, successful relationships. He's always trying to break people up. He's trying to make us distraught and hopeless and all these things. That's all him. So you were baptized in the Presbyterian church, and that was not that long ago. That was 2023. So man, you're on the fast track here of like, God is like, okay, now I've got him. Let's keep this thing going. So then what happened next?
So I mean, it feels like I am on the fast track now, which is so crazy because it's been, we call it sobriety in the recovery rooms, where it's just like, you're just trudging, one foot in front of the other, and nothing's happening. And that was my life for 15 or 14 years. And now it's crazy to even hear myself speak about this, because it's like, I have a book in the world, and this is just the starting point for other like really inspiring things that we're working on at the moment as well. And it's just incredible. But sorry, what was the original question?
Well, I was just wondering what happened next. But before you say, it always reminds me, I don't know if Deacon Don said this when you were in OCIA, but I'm a really visual person, so I like to envision things. But he talked about one time that there's this piece that's missing in us, and it's Jesus. Jesus needs to fill it up. It's the only thing that's going to fill it up. So when you're on the fast track, I think that's kind of how I was. It's like when I first walked into the church, I was like, let's do this. I'm ready. It's like, and then that was it. Like I stuck with it. I didn't turn away. I'm just so, I love it so much, and I just couldn't get enough. And, it's just when God wants something to happen, it happens. And he, purposely put those gentlemen in your life. That's what you needed. Everybody needs something. God knows what it is. And then it's up to us to be receptive to it, to be open to it. And he knows the moment. And then we have a choice. We can either go with it and go towards the light or reject it. And then we're just still in the same boat. I know a lot of people like that too. And I think that's really sad, but that's up to God. We can pray for them, and pray that they'll find their way back or to the Lord. But, it's ultimately up to the Lord to decide when, he knows that moment that will draw somebody in, and that was your moment. So you baptized Presbyterian, and then what happened?
We'll be right back. What does it mean to live a life of faith? What does it mean to live as a Catholic Christian? Hi, this is Bishop Kevin Sweeney, host of the podcast Beyond the Beacon. Join me as we unravel and discuss the mysteries of our faith, of the church, of living as Catholic Christians. Be inspired by engaging interviews with priests and seminarians, deacons, religious, women and men who live the life of faith day by day here in our Diocese of Patterson, in food pantries and classrooms and parishes and ministry. How is God working in their lives today? How is God working in our lives? Join me as I ask them and be part of the conversation on Beyond the Beacon. Listen and follow Beyond the Beacon wherever you get your podcasts, or watch it on my YouTube channel. Please check the show notes for more details. Thank you and God bless you.
So, baptized Presbyterian, I'm going to church, and then a beautiful girl comes into my life, and her name's Danny, and I taught her to surf, and she was a competitive gymnast as a kid, so surfing just clicked for her like that, and she's been hooked ever since. So we had that. We would have these talks out in the ocean, and just talk about things, and she was raised Catholic, and she sort of was away from the church for a while, but has never lost her faith in Christ. So there's so much I could say about her. I mean, she co-authored the book with me. That the book would not be in the world without her. there's so much I could say, like,
Nothing like
really
a
should
good
just be
woman,
thoughts in.
Oh,
My
my
God!
God.
I mean,
right,
what's the
Simon
saying?
Balteras?
Blessed are,
Yeah.
yeah, blessed art thou amongst women, right? That's it. So I just and to be honest with you, what I got so with like most of the churches I see now, I see a lot of support for like the LGBTQ stuff, and there's just and there's something in my heart that just feels like that's and I have to say, like, me and Danny, we have some friends, some dear friends who are gay, and they're amazing, loving people. Like we love them, and so it's has nothing to do with that, but it's I just don't something in my and I can't even quite explain it, and I could be wrong, but I don't think I am. There's something about with like the LGBT stuff in the churches that just doesn't feel right to me. And I mean, if you read the Bible. So that's sort of what I started leaning towards, going to the Catholic Church, and then I got confirmed in June. But there was one more thing I wanted to add about that. I lost it, but I can come back
Well,
to it.
regarding the LGBT issue in churches, I think the same thing. I have a gay son, so I love my son, and it's a very frustrating thing when you love somebody, like you love your friends. I love my son, but there, it's very clear in the Bible. Jesus, or the Bible's very clear about what what we're supposed to be doing in marriage, in family, and things like that. So we can wish them well, we can love them and pray for them, but we also have a choice to not be a part of churches that welcome them. It's, if those churches want to welcome them, that's fine and great for them, and that's their choice. But we also have a choice to follow what the Catholic faith, the doctrine of the Catholic faith, that Jesus, is the one that we, Jesus loves everybody, but he doesn't always love what we're all doing. That could be many different things. So I appreciate what you're saying. But I also wouldn't care to go to a church like that. That's just not in my faith journey. So, I can see why you would gravitate to the Catholic Church. I know that I feel safe and secure with what the Catholic faith teaches, and, again, about the doctrine of marriage and family. And so, and the way we should be living our lives, whether we're heterosexual or homosexual, we need to be mindful of, our sexuality, and, be very responsible for that. And, so I think that's a nice way we can leave it with that. But so then you gravitated to the Catholic Church, and did you, because you said Danny had she was raised Catholic, but she kind of had turned away. Did you both kind of decide to go, like her back to the church, you into the church around the same time? Was it kind of a mutual support that you would kind of do that together, or did one lead more than the other?
It was about the same time, because she was coming to the Presbyterian church with me for a while, but then she, it just made sense to kind of move towards the Catholic Church with her upbringing, and I think a lot of my healing, but a lot of my healing is tied to the sacraments and stuff like that, and I'm still learning so much about this, and I should say that even becoming a Christian has been pretty confusing at times, right? With all the different things that different denominations are saying and stuff. But I mean, more and more so, I'm learning that I just have to rely on my personal connection with Christ for answers through prayer and that sort of thing.
Well, a couple interesting things. Simon and I have a similar story where he was turned away from the Catholic Church for many years. I wanted to become Catholic. He came back because I wanted to be in the RCIA. He was my sponsor. And so we joke and say God got a twofer because he got me and got Simon back into the church. But, you know, one of the things that kind of strikes me when we're talking about this is you were raised in a very unstable situation. You know, it wasn't you desired a stable lifestyle. And the Catholic Church, that's one thing you can really say about the Catholic Church. It stays stable. It doesn't go with the trends. It doesn't go with what's going on in the world. That's the amazing thing about it. It's not of the world. It's Jesus's church, you know, and that's where I find the most safety and security in my life, because I have a lot of issues with security. That's one of my things I'm really troubled by. And the Catholic Church provides that stability. So, I mean, other churches, like we're saying, they might, you know, think that they're doing the right thing by welcoming everybody or going along with the trends. And that doesn't work for me. It doesn't sound like it works for you. So it does feel good when you need stability, when you need strength, when you need that's why I love the church so much.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
So did you come to the Our Lady of the Assumption Church? Is that where you started attending Mass, or were you attending Mass somewhere else? Like, where was the first time you went to Catholic Mass?
So I've mostly lived in Santa Monica since 2020. Because of work and stuff, we ended up in Hawaii for like a year, which is crazy because that's where we weren't even planning on writing a book. Like, I had written stories from my childhood by hand. I had like a stack of papers, and Danny read them. You know, I wouldn't really show them to anyone, but she read them and she's like, "Wow, this has to become a novel. We have to do something with this." And so we were in Hawaii, and then it just came together that we were like, "Wow, let's actually put this. We have the time. Let's put this book together." So we did. We wrote and got it published and everything, and then we realized that we were going to have to be back in California because of the book and work stuff, and we didn't want to be in the heart of LA with everything going on at the time, so we ended up in Ventura. And we had gone to a Catholic church a couple times in Hawaii. We didn't really find our home there, but then we came to Ventura, and we were there for 6 months, and yeah, we went to the Our Lady and just loved it, and just and that's where I started the OCIA program there. So yeah,
That's amazing.
it feels like God put us there for a reason.
He did. He totally did. We have a really good OCIA program too. So I mean, I'm happy you went through it there, because I just think it's phenomenal. And I know we get a lot of people, you know, more and more every year. It's so exciting to me to watch that. You know, I've been Catholic now for, I think, 11 years. So you're a super fresh Catholic.
Newcomer.
So you're totally official. We're going to take another break, and we'll come back in just 1 second to continue this conversation. Okay? Okay. We'll be right back. What is happening at Fresh Catholic? Thanks for asking. Well, we have a weekly podcast with lots of topics and guests, and Fresh Catholic Daily, the daily Mass readings. Listen on all platforms and watch on YouTube. I also do short videos every day on Instagram and Facebook at Fresh Catholic. Like, share, subscribe, rate, and review. These are such simple ways to help us out. The other ways you can support our mission of drawing people to the faith or back to the faith are by becoming a Patreon or sponsor. Also simple, but so needed. Our website, freshcatholic.com, has an online store with merchandise, a blog, comics, and Fresh Catholic courses with educator Charles Merritt, with the Hail Mary, the Our Father, the Virtues, the Ascension, the Magi, the Visitation, the Ten Commandments, Sacraments and Grace, Sin, Advent, Angel, Lent, Typology, and even some Bible study courses. Wow, that's a lot. Please share all of this with everyone you know and join the Fresh Catholic family. And remember, be focused, be faithful, and be fresh. And we're back. Okay, so now I'm curious about a few things. So when you were initiated into the Catholic Church and you did the Easter Vigil, what was your impression of the Easter Vigil, first of all?
Oh man, I will say, I mean, overall it's been a beautiful process, but it's also been really challenging. And I think it's important to talk about this for people who are deciding whether or not they want to do this. Like, I'm convinced that I've been dealing with oppression like most of my life, and super intensely in the last 4 months for going through OCIA. And so a lot of the times how it affects me is I just shut down and I can't really hear what's going on in the mass, and so there's been a part of me where it's like that has felt a lot of like just anger when I'm sitting in the mass, and like I don't want to be here, and I've almost walked out a few times, and I know that that's not me. I know it sounds insane to say that, but so it's been, and there's been a lot going on behind the scenes, like spiritual warfare stuff that if it comes up organically I'll talk about it, but it's been pretty wild.
I truly believe in that too, because again, Satan is so mad that you became Catholic. He's so mad. Like, have you seen The Passion of the Christ?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know the part at the end when the earthquake is happening, Christ has been crucified, and it shows Satan, and it's like a shot looking down, and Satan's looking up, just screaming and wailing. That,
Yeah.
And then there's the drop that comes from the sky, like I always say, like God crying. That image of the devil screaming like that, that's what I imagine every time somebody becomes Catholic, every time somebody receives the Eucharist, every time somebody turns their life over to Jesus. That's what I imagine Satan is doing, because he's so wildly angry, and he puts these things in our head. I mean, I would love to say when you become Catholic that all of a sudden everything just is perfect and wonderful. And I would say for the most part, it changes your life in the best way. It's the best thing I've ever done. It's the best thing that's ever happened to me. But I've also had things like that where I will look at myself and go, well, that's not me. I mean, I can even stand outside and look and go, that's not me. And this has been since I become Catholic. And so that's very troubling to me. And I go to confession when that's happening, quite often, because I have a bad temper. I say and do things I'm not happy or proud of, but I feel the same way. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and go, I'm not responsible, or, it wasn't me or whatever. But I get what you're saying, and I'll go to confession and I'll say, I just don't want this. I don't want this feeling. This is not what I am about anymore. I don't want it. And I do feel such relief from, going to confession and just being released from that, because that in itself, is knocks Satan off his track, because, he doesn't want us to be on this path. So I think that is good for you to tell people. It's, it is good to be honest, because I think some people, struggle with all sorts of things. And so how have you been like coping with that, or how have you been trying to work through it?
Well, yeah, and a couple things I wanted to mention is I was dealing with, and I'm still dealing with it on certain days, but physical exhaustion, like fatigue, like depression, brain fog, and some days I would even look different, and Danny would, she knows when there's like a fog, a shadow over me. So it's really the way I like, and even just in this last week or so, I'm leaning into, because I've been constantly trying to, like, I've worked with some of the priests in the church, and they've prayed for me, and I've done the healing mass on Friday, and we actually had quite a powerful experience there. There's something, like I mentioned before, my healing is really tied to the sacraments, and I still don't fully understand that in an intellectual way, but I know it in my soul. But I've really just, even in the last week, I've kind of gotten to this place where I feel like I'm fed up with the oppression and what Satan is doing, and I'm just really like sharpening myself as a tool, like leaning into Scripture, walking around, going on long walks and just listening to the Bible or things related to self-deliverance. Because, I mean, it would be great if there was a priest or something that could shut this down, whatever is going on with me, but I haven't met them yet, and I don't want to live in this place. I've never liked being the victim, even with, you know, what I went through as a kid and being an alcoholic. I'm not a victim, you know. It wasn't my fault that those things happened, but it is my responsibility to take charge of my life and my healing, right? So I've just been I don't want to sit around and wait for someone to heal me. I should be able to do it myself, and that's so I'm leaning into prayer and my connection with Christ like really hard right now.
Can I make a suggestion about something?
I need
all the help I can get.
Okay, so I like to give this advice because this is something that has really worked for me, and I'm constantly being hit and targeted by so many things, and sometimes I take it as I've had like very wise older Catholics tell me, "Oh man, you're really on your path to holiness because, you know, Satan's really throwing these things at you and seeing how you're going to handle them." So there's a few things that really work for me. One is when I feel I'm being spiritually attacked, I have to know that I'm not in control. I can't do it on my own. It doesn't matter what I'm doing. The only thing that's going to save me is the Lord. So what I do for an instant relief, and it works every single time, if I'm feeling spiritually attacked, I shut my eyes, I start praying over and over and over without stopping, saying, "I rebuke you, Satan, in the name of Jesus Christ. I rebuke you, Satan, in the name of Jesus Christ. I rebuke you, Satan, in the name of Jesus Christ." I'll keep saying it, and all of a sudden, boop, it stops. It like stops. It's like a miracle. The other thing that works for me is I go into the adoration chapel. I've had just devastating things happen to me. I will be barely making it in there. I'm just sobbing my way in. I will kneel in front of the Blessed Sacrament and I will pray. All I'll say is, "Help me, Lord. Please help me, Lord. Help me, help me, help me." And again, boop, I get a relief. I'll say to him, "Take this from me. Please take this from me. I can't do this. I can't do this by myself. Take this from me. You can help me. You can help me." I give it all to him. And I just say it and I mean it. It's just like, and all of a sudden I'm given relief. He's the one that can solve it. Like I'm a person where especially before I was Catholic, it was like, I'm going to handle this. I'm going to take care of this, whatever it was. I'm Wonder Woman. I'll go take care of it. I mean, that's how I lived my life. But now I realize Jesus is the one who is in charge. He's the one that can save us all. We have to just totally surrender. He will take care of us. And that's my advice to you. If you know, it might sound like, oh, that doesn't sound like anything. It's try it because it does relieve you. I think the things you're doing, like going on walks, praying, I do all those things too. Those are wonderful. I don't stop doing that, for heaven's sakes. But when you need that relief, when you need that, you know, when you're feeling attacked, because Satan's just ripping his way through you when he does that, you know, and Jesus is the one that can stop it. He's the answer.
Yeah. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's what I mean, I feel like it's going to have to be my personal connection with him that breaks whatever this is, not getting help from someone else.
Right.
Or like, so yeah.
And you know, people can help you, but ultimately that's what I have found is I used to go to all different people for help and all these things. And then I realized he's who I go to now. I don't need to tell people what's going on. I go to him, and I pour my heart out to him. He knows everything that's going on, but I'm pouring my heart out to him, and I'm asking him for his help, because he's the only one that can help me. And even when something bad is happening, or something that we might not like, or we're confused by, or we're like, why is this happening? You know, I've given my life to you, Lord. Why is this happening? Because he's also trying to teach us lessons. He's trying to help us to realize we need to rely on him alone. And if we don't go through trials and traumas and dramas, we won't get to that point. So you're kind of being like tested. Remember when Jesus was being tested by Satan when he was in the desert? Like, I go to that a lot, and I think even Jesus was being tested, but he stood firm, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And, you know, learning about the sacraments, learning about the church, it's just an ongoing thing. And you just have to be a sponge, and you'll learn more and more. Everything, you know, as you go through it, you're just going to get closer and closer, and just, it'll be, you know, it's your lifestyle now. So it's all good. It's all something that you're going to learn. You're going to also help to teach other people. And that's a beautiful thing. You know, you'll be a vessel. Again, I think, you know, you're very inspirational. So that's awesome. So when you decided to become Catholic, how did your family and friends respond to that?
I'm kind of a hermit, to be honest. I'm a bit of a loner, so there hasn't. I mean, I'm very involved with like recovery and groups and recovery and all that. So I have a lot of, you know, friends in those areas, but you know, it's still something that's a bit private to me. I think more will be revealed there, especially as I'm doing stuff like this now. You know, I think my dad said, "Oh, I don't know, son. Well, wasn't there a lot of molestations or something?" And I was like, "Yeah," but yeah. So I mean, but you know, I listen to Father Dan Rehill a lot. You know, he's a priest, and you're probably familiar with him. And I mean, he was raised Catholic, and he was molested as a kid. Went away from the church for 20 years, but came back, and now he's a priest. And it seems like Christ is using him to heal a lot of people and bring a lot of people in. I mean, I listen to his stuff constantly. Like, he's helped me a lot as well. So, yeah, that's sort of where I'm at with, you know.
That's good. I mean, it'll be a process. I know in regards to when people bring that up about the, you know, sex abuse scandal, I'm not downplaying that at all. I think it's a horrible thing, you know, a horrible thing, but the church is run by humans, and it's, you know, humans make mistakes, but I always tend to think, I heard one time, I thought this was a good way to wrap your mind around it. When you're in a family, and let's say grandpa molests the children, somebody in the family, you don't like get rid of the whole household, the whole family, because of what grandpa did. You deal with grandpa, and you keep the family together, and you build the family with love and strength. You know, that's how I feel about the Catholic Church is, you know, we can't let humans' mistakes ruin what Christ created and built, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, and I heard someone say that, I mean, just like America has a lot of good and dark forces, I mean, the church can have, any institution can have good and dark forces, where we have to discern that, you know?
Right. Let's see. I think we're kind of, we're doing pretty good on time, but we're going to like kind of start coming to the end here. What would you say has been your favorite part about becoming Catholic, coming into the faith?
Well, you know, and it's hard to talk about this stuff sometimes, but there's been like supernatural things happen in my life. And like I said, my healing being tied to the sacraments, and you know, I have someone really close to me that you know, it's hard to put it into words, but basically feels like Christ has. It's not. This hasn't. None of this. It's yeah. I'm still so new to it all. And I'm still learning. But I like how there's like a daily mass in the morning, and like I try to get to that morning one as much as I can, because I like things like that. I also go to a recovery meeting almost daily, things where I can like go someplace and reset my mind, because most of the time I wake up with a lot of negativity, right? So it's about being able to shift that into the positive. So I really like the morning mass, and I'm sure there's other things that I like about it too. But like I said, it's still early days.
Yeah,
for me.
you're so fresh into it. So before we do the little game we're gonna play, I just want to be sure. Can you give, and I know I'm directing my listeners to go to that YouTube little mini movie about your book, but can you give us a little overview of just a synopsis of the book so they know what it's about from your words?
Yeah. So the book is basically about a lot of the things that we talked about here today. Uh, Generational trauma, the patterns that play out in each generation, the ones that in it, my family is the model for this, the example, and alcoholism, but then there's a lot of like adventure in there, and fun things like I lived in Indonesia for 10 years, but I really after I got sober, I went and did a lot of the things that I missed out on when I was drinking, and when I was an alcoholic. So I went all over the world, and surfing was a great tool to do that, to see the world. So I talk about that. But it all it's the end. It's all about coming to Christ in the end, because even after doing all that and checking a lot of my dreams off the list, I still was struggling. I couldn't keep a relationship together. I couldn't keep a business together. Like everything would always collapse. And there's something that has happened in the last 2 years, after getting baptized, that it feels like I sort of had, even with all the difficulties I'm dealing with oppression or whatever it may be, it feels like I have this seal of protection where things are just working for the first time in my life. And it brings me to tears sometimes. Like it really does. I'm so thankful to be in this place, and it's a starting point for doing more.
Well, and I think that's the thing when people have been through, like I say, trauma, drama, all these, things going on in your life, it should make you grateful when you have that shield of Christ, or you have, him as your protection. I know that's how I feel. I've been through a lot of trauma, a lot of drama in my life, and he's the thing that I feel the safest with and the most secure with. So, I think he is, again, like I say, he's the key to all things. He's the answer. And, I pray that everybody can have that experience, because there's just so many people that are lost and hurting, and they're seeking things out everywhere but him for whatever reason. And I don't know what that is, but when you finally, become a part of his, just a part of him, things do start working, even if like you don't have all the money in the world, or you don't have the best things, physically or tangibly, you have him, like no matter what, and that's a beautiful thing, and then the fact that you and Danny have each other, that I just think it's wonderful when you have a person, a partner, a husband and wife, and you're in the same religion together. It's a beautiful bond. I mean, I'm the wedding coordinator at the church, so I'm very into love and marriage. And if you need a wedding coordinator ever, just we'll let Deacon Don know. Anyway, but I do think, it helps to strengthen your relationship with Christ as well when you have that bond with each other, and he's a part of your bond as well.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So in the book, do you talk about your conversion in the book?
No, because it hadn't quite happened yet by the time the publisher got it out there. So I talk about getting baptized and that period after getting baptized. But yeah,
Sounds
I
to
didn't
me
get to
like you
be,
have some stories you could put in another book.
yeah. I mean, there's potential for more. We're just getting started, right? So.
Is there anything else you wanted to say before we play this little game and we end this episode?
No, I mean, just I'm honored that you asked me to come on. I love your style of interviewing, and I'm looking forward to seeing where you guys go with this.
I know, me too. So let's play this little Fresh Catholic game, the Path to Catholicism game. I'm going to give you some words, and you tell me kind of like the first thing that pops into your head when I say these things. You don't have to go into detail about, just like first thing that kind of pops into your head. So the first word is discipleship.
Necessary.
The Blessed Mother.
Purity.
Purity.
Yeah, purity.
The Holy Eucharist.
Sacred.
Sacred. God the Father.
Everything.
The Holy Spirit.
Power.
And Jesus Christ.
Central.
Central. Perfect.
Central.
Speaking of Jesus, if he were to appear to you in the flesh right now, what would you say to him?
I'd probably say, "How's it going, brother?" And I'd give him one of these and embrace him. And then, I mean, what do you say? I mean, hopefully he'd want to go grab a coffee or something, and we could have a long chat, you know. But I will say, so Danny has this thing where when she's working with people she works with, she asks them like, who, if they could meet anyone in history, like who would it be? And I think people usually say like Bob Marley or Mark Twain or something like. And when she asked me, I said, well, I didn't even hesitate. I said Christ, and it like caught her off guard. So I don't know exactly what I would say to him, but I really would like to meet him.
Yeah, wouldn't that be amazing? Well, I just got this vision in my head when you said, you give him a thing and say, I imagine that you say, let's go surfing, and then he doesn't need a surfboard.
Yeah.
That's so funny. Come on, that was funny.
That's awesome. I think you're right on that. Yeah, he can show me a thing or two. He would be even more incredible to watch than the Dolphins.
That's so true. Well, I so appreciate you coming today. I think this has been an amazing interview, and I just really encourage all my listeners to go to the link, purchase this book. I think it will be inspirational. Buy it for a friend, because I'm sure we all know people who are struggling or who have struggled, but there always is a way through, especially if you have your eye on Christ. So I highly recommend everybody get this book. And I just wish the best for you and for Danny. And I just, pray, lean on the Lord with everything you have. And if you ever need anything, you can always contact Lori Balderas at Fresh Catholic.
Thank you. We look forward to meeting you in person. We'll stop by the parish there.
That sounds good. Okay. Thank you for coming today.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Love you. Bye.
Thank you for joining me today. Now go out and be a bright light in someone's life. And remember, be focused, be faithful, and be fresh.
Fresh Catholic is produced, edited, and recorded in Ventura, California.